Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, we're in Greece, climbing 999 steps to bring you the best of the Peloponnesian Peninsula. Thanks for joining us. Peloponnesia was the heartland of ancient Greece. Its wild and mountainous landscape has hosted the interminable rise and fall of cultures, which makes for fascinating sightseeing today. The peninsula is dotted with striking ruins, from ancient Mycenaean domes to Golden Age temples to imposing Venetian fortresses. And we'll also see stunning seaside scenery, a Greek Orthodox service, and the breathtaking remains of a Byzantine citadel. In the extreme south of Europe is Greece. And in the south of Greece, a short drive from Athens, is the Peloponnese, a peninsula barely hanging from the mainland. Our tour includes Mycenae, Nafplio, Epidavros, Olympia, Kardamyli, the rugged Mani Peninsula, and Monemvasia. Peloponnesian history is Greece's history. Warring tribes, Pan-Hellenic games, Golden Age Greeks, Roman rule, centuries of Byzantine rule. Then, with the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in the 15th century, the Peloponnesian Peninsula became part of the Ottoman Empire. Finally, in the 19th century, after 400 years, the Greeks threw out their Turkish overlords and established an independent modern nation. Greece, with a relatively sparse population and a fine road system, is easy to cover by bus or car. We've rented a car in Athens, and in 90 minutes, we're crossing the Corinth Canal. The Corinth Canal cuts the Peloponnesian Peninsula off from the rest of Greece. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Emperor Nero broke ground for this canal, but the 4-mile-long ditch wasn't actually dug until about a century ago by modern Greeks. Our first stop is ancient Mycenae, the oldest site you're likely to see in this land dotted by so many ruins. The Mycenaeans, who dominated the Greek world between 1600 and 1200 BC, were the first Bronze Age society to emerge on the European mainland. As the torch of civilization moved westward, they picked it up from the Minoans, an even earlier civilization that thrived on the Greek island of Crete. While the Minoans enjoyed the luxury of peace on their remote island, the Mycenaeans were a militaristic society surrounded by enemies. Their capital was heavily fortified and stood on an easy-to-defend hill, flanked by steep ravines with views all the way to the sea. Mycenae flourished because it was ideally situated for trade by both sea and land. In its day, the mighty Lion Gate would have been awe-inspiring. Standing strong here for over 3,000 years, it was the symbol of Mycenaean power. These were the early Greeks Homer wrote of in the Iliad and the Odyssey. Keep in mind, these people lived 1,000 years before the rise of Athens. They were as ancient and mysterious to Socrates and Plato as those Golden Age Greeks are to us. While the ruins are stark and scant, with a little imagination, you can envision life here. For example, to fetch water, residents would descend into this cleverly constructed mine-like shaft and climb way, way, way down. I'm 60 feet below the surface. This is the cistern where the water was collected, piped in from a spring that was 500 yards outside the walls. Even back then, couldn't have a good fortress without water. Mycenae was at the peak of its power around 1300 BC, after which it and its empire seemed to disappear virtually overnight. A circular wall of stones defined the cemetery. Mycenae lay unappreciated until the 19th century, when a treasure trove of gold was unearthed in this necropolis. Today, those treasures are the star attractions back in Athens at the National Archaeological Museum. This discovery affirmed the archaeologists' theory that Mycenae was Homer's fabled city rich in gold, and the elaborate detail makes the sophistication of the Mycenaeans clear. These golden cups are exquisite. The so-called Mask of Agamemnon was a death mask placed on the face of a dead king in his coffin. The Mycenaeans took good care of their dead, at least their important dead. This passageway leads to an underground royal tomb. The corbelled stonework was an engineering feat. Designed like a stone igloo, this Tholos tomb was the biggest dome of its day. This remarkable structure remained the king of domes until the Romans built their Pantheon about 1,400 years later. One way to judge a society's architectural finesse is by the distance it can span with no internal supports. By today's standards, this structure's not much, but back then, it was a wonder. Nearby on the coast, the city of Nafplio is the perfect base for exploring the northeast corner of the Peloponnesian Peninsula. Nafplio is a striking reminder that this part of Greece was, for centuries, an outpost of Venice. The island in the harbor was the first line of local defense. The second line was the Kardamyli fortress, capping the hilltop high above. Climb 999 steps above Nafplio and you reach this early 18th century fortress. Your reward, along with a great view, is a chance to appreciate the far-reaching power of the Venetian Empire in its day. The Kardamyli fortress, regarded as the best example of Venetian military architecture, saw plenty of action. It fell to the Ottomans in 1715, played a role in the Greek War of Independence in the 1820s, and was occupied by the Nazis during World War II. Nafplio is one of Greece's prettiest towns. Its narrow streets are lined by elegant Venetian houses and graceful neoclassical mansions. Like the big square in Athens, Nafplio's main square is called Syntagma, or Constitution Square. A constitution was the dream of many in the 1820s as the Greeks were creating their newly independent nation. As this town was one of the first liberated from the Ottoman Turks in 1822, Nafplio became the new country's first capital city. This square is a delightful mix of architecture revealing the many layers of local history. The old Venetian arsenal still sports the symbol of Venice, the winged lion of St. Mark. The domed mosques are a reminder of centuries of Muslim Ottoman rule. This mosque was converted to house independent Greece's first parliament. At the top of the town, our hotel's stony courtyard fits right in. The breakfast room comes with friendly service and a commanding view. And the bedrooms are a tasteful mix of stone and wood. The harborfront promenade features inviting bars and couch-filled cafes, which attract a relaxed crowd. The sofas encourage locals and visitors alike to stay a while. And if you stay long enough, nearby tavernas, as rustic restaurants are called here, serve the fish dish of your dreams. An hour's drive east is the sanctuary at Epidavros, with the best preserved theater in the ancient world, surrounded by the scant remains of its city. In 400 BC, Epidavros, with a sprawling complex of hospitals and sick wards, was the most famous healing center in the Greek world. It was a place of miraculous cures and comfortable benches, where the sick came to be treated by doctor priests doing the work of Asclepios, the Greek god of medicine. The highlight of Epidavros is its fine theater, which provided entertainment for those who made the pilgrimage here from all over Greece. It continued to operate until 426 AD, when Emperor Theodosius II, who was a Christian, closed it down along with all other pagan sanctuaries. Given its size, over 12,000 seats, and obvious lack of modern amplification, the acoustics needed to be perfect, and they still are. Friends, Greeks, wayfarers. In these times of discord, fear is rampant in our society. I contend that the flip side of fear is understanding. And those who travel will reap great understanding by meeting people who find other truths to be self-evident and God-given. The rugged, sparsely populated terrain of the Peloponnese evokes ancient times when Greeks considered this a mysterious and frightening land. A mythic world of terrifying creatures. No wonder it was here that Hercules was sent to perform most of his daunting labors. Ancient athletes were tested here as well. The sanctuary of Olympia was the birthplace of the Olympic Games. Despite the tourist crowds, it remains an evocative place, nestled among shady trees. Wandering its extensive ruins, it's clear Olympia was much more than a stadium.
Yes, seriously.
Local tour guide Nikki Vlaku helps explain. So it's called the Sanctuary of Olympia.
Yes, but it was primarily a religious place dedicated to Zeus and the rest of the gods with temples all over. And it was only open to people during the Games for over 1,000 years.
The Temple of Zeus was magnificent in the 5th century BC and reminds us that the Games were held in honor of the supreme deity of the Greek pantheon, or world of gods.
Inside this temple was that amazing statue of Zeus, which was considered to be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Gold and ivory towering in the temple that made the Greeks lose their minds by seeing Zeus alive in front of them. This was one of their chances to meet the god in person, as they thought.
6 centuries after Christ, earthquakes sent its columns tumbling. Today, they lie here as if to illustrate how Greek columns were stacks of fluted limestone drums held together with square pegs. The popularity of the Games grew rapidly, attracting athletes from throughout the Greek world to compete in an ever-increasing number of events. There was javelin, discus, boxing. There's a sprint of 1 stadium length, the 2-stadium sprint, even 2-stadium sprint naked with all your armor. The last of the ancient Games were held in 393 AD, not to be started again for 1,500 years. So why the Games?
To unify the Greeks, to strengthen the Greek culture, and to also teach all these young boys the military skills they needed. Plus, they had all these classrooms here to teach them the Greek philosophy.
So the Olympic Games actually made the Greek culture stronger.
The idea was that if the Greeks are to fight, they better fight in the stadium and be united against the rest of the world.
It's brilliant, and this worked for 1,200 years.
Yes.
The most vivid remnant of the Games is this, the original Olympic Stadium. Visitors just can't resist the chance to line up on the marble starting blocks and imagine athletes from around the Greek world doing the same thing at those first Games back in 776 BC. While most visitors get to the 4 Peloponnesian sites we've seen so far, a 3-hour drive gets us off the beaten path and to the south coast. This is where the rugged charm of this remote corner of Greece is most apparent. The town of Kardamyli, gateway to the Mani Peninsula, is one of the oldest names in the annals of Greek history, even mentioned in Homer's Iliad. This unassuming little seaside getaway is a fine spot to relax and settle into the pace of Greek country life. The remains of the tiny fortified old town are a reminder that Kardamyli was deserted in the Middle Ages when pirates forced the inhabitants to retreat up into the hills. Most remained there until the 18th century, when tower houses like these allowed a safe return. Yanis Demetrius runs a delightful little shop that showcases the organic riches of this corner of Greece. You know, this room to me is just a celebration of everything you can find in the hills here in the Peloponnese.
Well, that's how we feel about it, actually, and that's why we're running this little store.
So you find everything here essentially up in the hills, just in your backyard.
Next door. Well, should I show you what I pick now, Rick?
Sure.
Well, this is it. This is chamomile or chamomile. This is a beautiful chamomile, as you can see, white and yellow flower. It is the flower that we are after.
So all the good stuff is in the flower.
The good stuff inside the flower that make you rest, sleep easily at night, calm down your stomach. If you got a cold, soothes down your sore throat and everything. Doctors recommend it.
So this is like a pharmacy.
You've got it. Let me show you the olives now.
Okay.
We have many different types of olives, but what it is about olives is the way we make them. You don't go off the tree, of course, and pick them like you pick any other fruit and you eat it. They have to be picked and then go through a process of being marinated, cleaned up, washed, and after a certain time, they'll be ready to eat.
What do we have here?
These are the Kalamata olives. Kalamata. As the town Kalamata, that's the name of the olives. Now, this is made very simply. This is made with sea salt, wine vinegar, and olive oil. As simple as that.
Now, what's in this one?
Well, this is Kalamata and green ones mixed together and marinated with more herbs. Sea salt, wine vinegar, 6 herbs, olive oil, and garlic.
I have to try one.
Of course. It's my pleasure.
This is the herby version. These are the same kind of olives as these and these, but with more herbs.
With more herbs.
It's good. And all of those herbs were found in the hills?
On the hillsides.
By you?
By me.
Really?
Absolutely.
So you must feel very personal about these olives.
I mean, I'm almost in love with it. I love doing it.
The charm of Kardamyli is its low-key atmosphere, especially lunch or dinner time overlooking the coast. We're here before the tourist season hits, and it's mostly locals enjoying the scene. It's Sunday, and 2 goats are roasting on the spit as we settle in for a taste of the local cuisine. Starting with ouzo, the Greek anise-based aperitif. Then a fresh Greek salad, stuffed peppers, and tzatziki, the yogurt dip that accompanies most meals. And when goat's on the spit, why choose anything else? Kardamyli is a good springboard for exploring the Mani Peninsula. This southeastern tip of the European mainland feels as wild as its history. In the 17th and 18th centuries, this godforsaken corner of Greece was known to travelers as the land of evil counsel. That's because of its reputation for robbery and piracy, a more reliable way to survive here than trying to eke out an honest living by farming this barren land. The town of Vathia is one of the region's characteristic tower settlements. The best preserved of all the Mani villages, its deserted fortified houses are a poignant reminder that these harsh conditions forced the population to seek protection in clans. In its day, the population was swollen by an influx of refugees fleeing whatever crisis was gripping Greece further to the north. Looking around at the stark landscape of the Mani Peninsula, which barely supports 5,000 people today, it's hard to believe that 200 years ago it sustained a population of almost 60,000. Just up the coast, wedged in a ravine, the village of Kastania is more inviting and offers a rare opportunity to explore a traditional Mani village. While it feels pretty sleepy today, Kastania was once a local powerhouse. During the 19th century Greek War of Independence, it boasted no less than 400 guns, as Mani people called their menfolk. They were gathered under a warlord whose imposing family tower still stands over the town square. Along with many guns, the town had many churches. The tiny Church of St. Peter, thought to have been built during the 12th century, is a fine example of Byzantine church architecture of the time. The inside is richly adorned with frescoes that have told Bible stories to this community for centuries. While it feels unkept and ramshackle, and a destructive mold has hastened the aging of its precious art, the spiritual wonder of the place remains intact. It's amazing to think that in our age, there are still remote corners where centuries-old art is tucked away, where virtually no tourist goes, and where the curious traveler can be alone with a fragile yet surviving bit of a bygone age. Neglected as this chapel seems, when a local drops by to light a candle and say a prayer, you realize this is still very much a living place of worship. Back down on the town square, the local priest calls his flock to worship. Whether 30 or just 3 show up, he performs the service with the same enthusiasm. Like people in Russia, Serbia, and some other Balkan countries, most Greek Christians are Eastern Orthodox. Orthodox churches follow the earliest traditions of the Christian faith, from a time before reforms created today's Roman Catholic and Protestant traditions. The iconostasis, the icon-covered screen in the middle of the room, separates the material world where the worshipers stand from the heavenly one. Orthodox priests do the religious heavy lifting behind this screen, where the Bible's kept. Orthodox icons, stylized paintings of saints, are packed with intricate symbolism. Cast against a gold or silver background, they're meant to remind viewers of the spiritual nature of Jesus and the saints, rather than their physical form. Traditional Orthodox worshipers stand through the service as a sign of respect. Orthodox worship generally involves chanting, and the church is filled with the evocative aroma of incense. Through these elements, the Mass attempts to create an actual religious experience, to help the worshiper transcend the physical world and enter into communion with the spiritual one. A short drive eastward through the mountains takes us to the magnificent island fortress of Monemvasia. Often referred to as the Gibraltar of Greece, this is a virtual showcase of Byzantine, Ottoman, and Venetian history dating back to the 13th century. Its historic causeway is still the only way on or off this burly chunk of land. The town's fortified gate opens onto Monemvasia's narrow cobbled main street, which meanders uphill past an assortment of tourist shops and cafes with terraces overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. In the 14th century, the fortress of Monemvasia was also a prosperous trading center. In its day, it was one of the great commercial centers of the Byzantine world, with a population of about 40,000. A key strategic holding, it was occupied back and forth between the Venetians and the Turks until modern times. Monemvasia then slipped into a decline that lasted until tourists rediscovered the place in the 1970s. Many of the town's houses have been restored and are used as weekend retreats by wealthy Athenians. A steep zigzag path leads up and up out of the lower town. Passing through the old town gate, you enter the fortified upper town. Its ruins sprawl across the broad summit of the rock. In its day, Monemvasia was considered the mightiest fortress in Byzantine Greece. Not surprisingly, it was never taken in battle, but it was susceptible to siege. Its greatest weakness was its reliance on the mainland for food and water. The fortress's only surviving building is the 13th century Byzantine Church of St. Sophia. Hanging precariously to the edge of a sheer cliff, it strikes me as a metaphor for the resilience of traditional culture in our modern world. A multifaceted history, welcoming people, delicious food, and dramatic vistas. The Peloponnesian Peninsula has it all. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Steves. Until next time, keep on traveling. So Giannis, there's olives everywhere in the Mediterranean. What makes these grapes special?
These olives.
A multifaceted history, delicious people. Yeah?
We're in the middle of a take, Rick. We're ready to roll, Rick.